All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good
And
evening.
I would like to welcome all of you to tonight's meeting of the Middletown Board of Education Budget Committee. This meeting will be called to order at 5:31. Let me just take a minute, please, to check off the people who are here.
Miles. Continue straight.
Is that you, Callie?
Yeah, Callie Grippo.
Okay. I can see people on the screen, and I believe there are 5 people plus Mike. Excuse me, 4 people plus Michael right here. So let's go to the first item on the agenda, which will be the approval of the minutes from the last time we met, which was March 10th. Kelly, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
And I'll second. So the minutes have been approved. I'd like to move to the second item on our agenda, which is a review of the financials and transfers, and turn it over to Dr. Matos and to Natalie, please.
Okay, Natalie will give us the overview of the financials.
Okay.
Thank you very much. In general, the overview shows that we have a projected surplus of just over $200,000 for the year. We still have 8 pages of open purchase orders from schools and departments. Some of those, first of all, just to know, the finance office is focusing on all of those, working with individuals at schools and departments. So our goal is to expeditiously close those out. However, a number of departments, and for example, facilities and special education, work right up to the deadline of 6:30. And so therefore, we can't get a really good idea of some of those expenditures yet. I think what we are seeing is areas where the appropriation for 24-25 may need to be adjusted for 25-26. And so one example of that might be line 53,200, professional education services, where we're showing a projected deficit of $226,000 on that line, but we had reduced that line by $300,000 or so over the prior year's expenditure. So some of these areas are starting to show up where we will need to make adjustments as we move into next year's budgeting. And I suppose those numbers were based on information that we had at the time.
Natalie, may I ask about what are you basing your projection about the surplus on? If you have, are you telling us that you have quite a few invoices or purchases that you still have to deduct from this current budget year?
So what I need to say is that potentially some of the money that is currently encumbered may be released, but I can't tell you that right now until the year runs its course. So based on conservative estimates for staffing, meaning we anticipate that all positions would be filled through the end of the year, which likely there will be a variance on, but all we can do right now is to project full staffing. And based on those open purchase orders, which, as I mentioned, we are closely reviewing, at this time, we're anticipating $200,000 as a surplus, which, to be fair, is a very small percentage based on the amount of our budget. But we are projecting a surplus.
Okay.
So I'd be happy to answer any questions on particular lines, but right now, some of them still remain, unknown to us as well. We're just following them as we move forward.
Sure. Well, I do have a couple about specific line items. Page 1, 51315, salaries, subs,
Yes.
LT regular.
Yes, long-term subs.
So
yeah.
you're projecting a 60%, it looks like, a $68,000 deficit on that?
Yes. So that is dependent on support with ESS. When we have to pay for long-term substitutes, that is over and above what we would have budgeted for the positions in the different categories. So
Okay,
long-term substitutes are due to, needs that occur during the year.
so due to charges from the service that provides us with the subs.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Would that be true? I'm sorry, different question. 51718 on that same page, salaries for tutors.
Yes, salaries for tutors, we're showing a surplus. And I think what story that is telling is that we anticipated we would need more money for tutors, but what we're showing is we didn't need as much as we anticipated. And so you can also look there at the difference between the expenditures in 23-24 and 24-25. We increased by approximately $50,000 this year, but that was probably a little bit too high in the projection.
And I'm not sure if you or Dr. Matos tutors, meaning in what capacity do they work as tutors? Are these
So,
people? Go ahead.
so we have tutors that are assigned because of IEPs.
Okay.
And we also have tutors who work in our expulsion program.
Expulsion, okay. Thank you. 51912, salaries class coverage. That, I think I brought this up last month. That continues to be a result of, again, this is paid out to individual teachers who cover classes.
Yes, I think this
So
line
that-
is,
Go ahead, please.
I apologize. I think this line is elevated also because of the CT sick, because at the beginning of the year, we had not anticipated the CT sick rule from the state of Connecticut.
Okay,
And so that also has escalated because we account for CT sick in that line.
okay, now, just so it's clear to me, CT sick is the new legislation
That's
allowing
correct.
people to take a few hours here and there, is that it?
Yes.
That's correct.
Am I adequately explaining that? Okay.
Yes.
Well,
That is correct.
okay. So that's increased, obviously, our coverage because
Correct.
of people leaving.
Yes.
51116, classified regular project, I believe.
Yes.
And is that the one that you just commented on?
No, that one is more to do with facilities staff in particular is driving that number there. There are a number of people who are out on special leaves and
Okay.
requires us to fill those positions. It's not solely that, but that's the majority of the funds.
Get people out on a temporary leave for illness?
Yes. It might be illness or they got hurt on the job or something of
Okay.
that nature, workers' comp.
Page 2 on the sheets that was sent to us, number 51713, a surplus of $95,000.
Yes, so this is the lunch and duty aids line. Each school is allowed to have a certain number, or is, projected, budgeted to have a certain number of duty aids. Not all schools take advantage of the number of duty aids available to them in the budget, but also to be said that this is not an easy position to hire for.
Mhm.
So yes, this is likely a line, unless Dr. V decides that we need to maximize this line. This is likely a line where we would lower the appropriation for the following year.
So maybe Dr. Matos can comment. Is this an issue at all, Dr. Matos, with either building principals or any other people?
So it depends on the school and the need. Like Natalie said, in some situations, these positions are hard to fill because they're part-time positions that
Yeah.
come in to cover for cafeteria or recess and things of that sort.
Okay.
And in some schools, actually, they have established some type of relationship or protocol. We have, so for example, in one school, we have bus drivers who, after they do their routes, they come in and are the lunch or the duty aids for the school. So we have different types of scenarios and different types of schools. What I've heard from principals is that, yes, they do need them to support in coverage, especially during cafeteria and recess. But they are hard to fill because they're part-time and they are they've just historically been hard to fill.
Right. And how were those publicized, Dr. Matos? I mean,
So we publicize like all the other positions. We post them on our website. We post them internally and externally, and so we post them like all the other positions.
okay. Thank you. I think this is the one, Natalie, that you commented on. 53200, professional ed services,
Yes, that's at the top of page 3.
220, yes, page 3, 226, 226,000,
Yes.
29.
Yes. Here we're seeing that there's a projected deficit of $226,000. One question that we might raise here is how many substitutes for these professional services may be needed. The number has obviously exceeded what we anticipated. So a question may be raised, would it be better to have, for example, a staff hire someone to be a floater who goes from one school to the other as needed rather than hiring a number of additional subs? That's just a thought, but in particular, yeah, that's what I just wanted to say about that. It's a question we should ask as we budget for next year.
Now, let me just ask, so these are people provided by the service, is it ESS?
Yes, that's correct.
Service? Would-
ESS and we have other contractors like Soliant,
Okay.
who are specialized in certain areas such as speech and language, OT, PT, those type of services. So we have different contracts with different vendors, not just ESS.
So if you just like also to reference line 53400, that's the sort of sister category to the one that we're looking at. So a number of the positions that Dr. V just alluded to, the SLPs and so forth, are found in that line. And so both of these lines refer to different types of service provided by external companies that provide us with individuals that can fulfill these services.
Let me ask, were these positions budgeted for in the last budget? And the positions have not been filled. You've been unable to fill them.
That's correct.
So the projected salaries to the people we could have hired is offset by the money that we're spending with these services. But the services charge more, correct, than we would for the salaries. That we
That's
pay out
correct.
the
Yeah.
salaries.
The hourly or daily rate would be elevated compared to a salaried hourly rate.
And if you factored in benefits, Natalie, is it still going to be quite a bit higher?
So benefits, we don't pay benefits for the services of external employees. They're not like employees. These are services that are provided.
But if we had hired someone,
Yes.
you would look at their salary plus their benefits, correct? I guess what I'm getting at is you're suggesting or saying this is not a long-term solution. It would be better for us to hire someone and
Yes.
the cost of the salary and the cost of the benefits we would pay to that person
Yes.
still be less than what we're paying to ESS.
Yes, because yes, it would, because the rate is significantly higher, because you also have to pay for the company and for the elevated rate of the employee.
Right. Okay. Thank you. The other question I have was, I think it's on page 3 also, 55-100 pupil transportation,
Yes.
a projected savings of almost $800,000. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, it is.
Did something happen unexpectedly? That seems like a nice windfall.
I agree. I agree.
We're
I've
not
got-
sure why it happened.
I'm not quite sure, but I do have a note here that as I was asking about this, that this projected windfall will not be in next year's budget. So just how we have budgeted, based on the numbers provided to us by transportation, we would not expect such an elevated number here. I
Okay.
can't give you an exact reason for this, but I can certainly look into it for you.
Just curious.
Yep, yep.
I mean, if that happens every year, then, that's like a Christmas present, I would think.
I think it's got to do with credits that,
And then the contract extension.
that's right.
A contract extension, you said, Dr. Mehta?
The board approved the contract extension, which gave us a significant credit, but that will be that's just a one-time.
1
Credit.
year. That's right. Okay. And then the final thing I just continue to look at is the 55630 tuition to private sources.
Yes,
And it looks like it continues. It's about a 20% increase.
it
and what's
continues to
the projected?
escalate. Yeah.
Yes.
So at the last meeting, I think I reported that 2 students were leaving the program. And so we potentially at that time anticipated a slight reduction here towards the end of the year. But in the meantime, 3 additional students have moved into town and they're requiring significant services.
Okay. And that's out of our control, of course.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. I don't know if Callie has any questions, but that's all for me.
Thank you.
Does that
No,
conclude?
I don't have any. Harold touched on 2 that I was going to ask, but Natalie, you clarified it, so I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks. I had some questions about transfers. Natalie, did you go over those yet? Or you plan? You'll be doing that next?
I didn't go over them yet, but in general, the first one is the transfer of $20,697 was to create the match funds for the hand railing addition at Kegwin School
Okay.
for a Department of Administrative Services grant.
Mhm.
We considered how to try to get this grant in quickly, and we decided to use some general fund money to support the match. That way we could move more expeditiously through the process at the city.
Okay,
Okay. So then the second one is facilities. These are transfers across the lines based on where the needs are. And so you'll see 3 transfers there for facilities. Spencer School tidied up all of its lines towards the end of its year and its expenditure, the April 11th purchase order deadline, and moved money around a little bit from one line to the other to support a need that they had requested in administrative supplies. And finally, in our athletics department, they had money allocated on lines where there were balances remaining and other needs, and so they shifted those funds in order to support where their needs were. So the total transfers are $54,872.
okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Next item on the budget, the next item on the agenda, I would like to get a quick review, please, of what we have reduced from the mayor's budget proposal to the council. That was what, about 3 weeks ago, approximately? Could you just highlight what those were at the time? I don't know is that a surprise to you that it was what I was asked?
I can probably look on my email to find that for you while we're speaking. I'm sorry, I had taken that question to mean given the proposed mitigation to be voted on.
Okay.
What were we thinking there? That's how I had taken that question.
Actually, I think that would be enough, I think, to satisfy this item.
Yeah, I have, just so you know, we also voted on that at our last board meeting, so those are in your packet.
Right.
They were included in our packet at our last meeting.
Sure.
That list.
Okay.
We have those.
I just wanted to do it for the purpose of anyone who might be listening in tonight, but we can push forward now.
I believe it was the 3 math coaches and supplies that was the additional mitigation to reach the mayor's, the 4.19, which we submitted.
Okay.
So in relation to the new mitigation to the proposals, which have not yet been voted on by the Common Council, would you like to speak a little bit to that, Dr. V, our discussions?
Sure. Yeah, so we have been meeting to strategize on what else can we look at from each department, as well as also at the local level, that we might not be able to sustain. We're also looking at, for example, some of the summer programming that we were able to provide because we had COVID funds. We might not look the same because we don't have those funds to be able to support the programming to that full extent that we saw because of the COVID funds. Other things that we're looking at is also possible reorganization at the district level to be able to see efficiencies, as well as also any overlaps that we see from department to department that we might be able to look at and reorganize as part of, 1, mitigation, but 2, also operational efficiency. And so those are the conversations that we are starting to have and look at. Today we met with our director of athletics to look at all this, all the extracurricular activity clubs and the level of participation, and seeing if we can continue to sustain them based on student enrollment in those programs and so forth. So these are the conversations we're having, and trying to create a list of additional possible mitigation strategies, dependent on what the Common Council votes on.
Okay, thank you. Number 4, to you, Dr. Matos or Natalie, any updated information about the status of federal grants?
So I can start, Natalie, you can chime in. And so just a couple of things. We do have information as it relates to IDEA is populated. We don't have an exact amount, but it is the application is up on the state e-grant system. What we still don't see up is Title I. The other entitlement grants, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are still not populated. We still don't know what those amounts will look like. We do know also as it relates to the USDA, the United States Food and Agricultural Department. We know that there was a cut at the federal level that impacted states, and then hence the state decided to propose different Senate bills, which several of them, as it relates, for example, House Bill 7273, which was an act imposing a tax on certain sweetened beverage syrups and powders and dedicating the revenue to that to support universal meals. You probably saw, you all received that my testimony on that. That bill actually ended up in the House of Representatives, but it died, and so it did not get traction. And so then Senate Bill 1217, as it relates to also food and nutrition, an act providing school meals for all students, that actually ended up in the Appropriations Committee, but also died at the Appropriations Committee. And so what we don't know now is actually whether we will reverse back to the application process of free and reduced lunch, or will something else surface and be presented at the state level to support the CEP program, which means it allows for universal free and reduced lunch. Just note that this is a statewide issue, knowing that in the state of Connecticut, nearly 45% of all students enrolled in the state participate are qualified for free and reduced meals. Here at Middletown Public Schools, 61% of our student population qualify for free and reduced lunch. And so that is a significant impact and a worry around food insecurity for many of the superintendents and school boards throughout the country, if we have to revert back to the old way of families applying for school meals, knowing that there is food insecurity in the state, but also in our district. And so we're trying to really monitor this carefully, and the uncertainty both at the federal level and at the state level as it relates to providing breakfast, lunch, and in many cases, we also provide snacks for many of our after-school programs. So that's one that we are closely monitoring. As you know, we continue to advocate for the ECS funding and the rate to increase to make sure that it is actually it follows the same rate as inflation, knowing that it hasn't been increase in several years. And so that continues to be a conversation with the legislation. And so we closely monitor that as well. And Natalie, you want to talk a little bit about the 21C legislation?
Absolutely. So what we learned last week is that the federal government had zeroed out our 21C or the 21C program, which is the Nita Lowry after school program. The impact on our district is somewhere in the range between $450,000 and $500,000. We're unsure whether that zeroing out will stick or whether some money will come back. Since last week, we learned that it appears that there is money at the state for next year. I'm not quite sure how that funding works for 3 of our sites that will be in the cycle next year. So that's positive, but no news of money beyond there. And so what we're going to do to try to mitigate that is to apply for state grant cycles for after-school programs. However, those are 2-year instead of 3-year, and the amount of money the maximum amount of money you can get is a lot less than the 21C grants. So we would have 5 sites that we would like to apply, but now the state has reduced the number of sites that you can apply to 3. So I was going to say likely, but we will be submitting 3 grants in this state after school grant opportunity, which is due in a few weeks' time. So there's been a few updates even since last week there. But all in all, even if we got those 3 grants, our after-school programs would be impacted. And something of note is that this year we've seen a 35% increase in students participating in after-school programs. And those programs have become very aligned with really looking at extended learning, using data from the school day to identify areas where students can be supported through additional one-on-one tutoring, more on a HDT model that we're doing with our own people, in addition to enrichments that support their social emotional growth and their academic growth and enjoyment. So it's been an important tool to try to support our students' school day.
Now, the 21C, just for clarity, is a state grant?
21C is a federal grant. That's where the big concern is, because they've all been zeroed out.
Okay.
But we believe, based on a meeting we attended last week, that there's likely money for next year already at the state level, but no indication of money beyond that.
Okay.
Natalie, do you know what 3 sites you'll keep if we're funded?
We had some sites cycling out. So yes, we do know what those are. Yes, we will be looking for Beeman is definitely one that we're looking for. I'm sorry, the other one is just slipping my mind right now.
Maybe Bealfield?
Possibly, yes, yes. But we would keep Spencer Snow, Farm Hill, and we have a partnership with the YMCA on a grant for McDonough, which is a much smaller amount, but that would need to be reapplied for next year because that grant ends this year, 6/30. So we have probably 3 secured for 1 year, but all of the remaining ones we would have to look at new funding and or alternate funding.
Is there the current funding that they're using at the Y that they're the fiduciary for, that's been doing some of the Beeman after school programs? Is that going to continue into the next school year?
To my knowledge, the YMCA partnership is only with McDonough. and other Portland schools. That's the triad, the partnership, I believe, that the Y has. I'm not aware of.
The
It's
one
not
I'm talking
really
about
seen.
is the one where they're doing the gaming down at the Y and
Oh, I see.
some other things. Those are falling out of those funds that I believe Matt Lesser got for the
Yeah,
city.
yes. So that's an appropriation.
Mhm.
And if I'm not mistaken, that appropriation concludes 6:30. And I
Okay.
know that is with the Coalition for Children
Okay.
being managed through them.
Mhm.
It's not a large amount of money, but of course, we're very grateful for all partnerships.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that update on the federal and the state, the status of both for grants to Middletown. The next item I'd like to have one or both of you address is the status of the improvements to Kegwin School. Is there any update? I know that we had our special meeting for approval. So I'm assuming the asbestos abatement will go forward fairly soon. Go ahead, please.
Okay, yes. So there are a few questions that are open before we can submit those applications to the state. Those can be submitted from the 1st to the 10th of the month on a monthly basis. We're working now just to update the school population that will be at Kegwin School next year because it won't be Kegwin Middle School. And in order to submit the application, I have to get that updated. So we've been working with the Department of Administrative Services to identify who can do that for us. They haven't gotten a final answer for me, but it appears to be a CSDE, Department of Education contact that will need to do that for us. So as soon as that's resolved, that Kegwin will be allocated as a K-12 school rather than a middle school. Then we will be submitting the two applications that have gone through Common Council and our Board of Education. Those being for the asbestos abatement and for the hand railing on 3 staircases that would be used by our younger students. In addition, we have allocated some prior year carryover funds to get a couple of the work items moving. Those would be for a basketball or the blacktop for a basketball court, the chain link fence, and the network wiring drops in each of the classrooms to enable computers and other devices to function for teaching and learning.
Okay. Anything else to add at this time? We're going forward at the pace that you anticipated. Nothing, it's not slowed down. Everything seems to be coming into place and according to schedule.
Yes, to the extent that we can project that, I believe we anticipate that the school will open with what needs to be done for students to inhabit the building. That includes the 2 items at the Common Council, the HVAC unit for the library media area, which the city reallocated funds that were dedicated to other Board of Education CNR projects. They reallocated funds that we didn't use all of the funds that had been allocated towards that because it was a vital project that needed to be done before students could enter the building. So that was just a reallocation of funds, not new funds. And also they reallocated some of the remaining money to the match portion of the asbestos application to the state. So
Right.
that's good. We have had further conversations with Senator Lesser's office in regards to appropriations versus a notwithstanding language that would pertain to a renovation project at Kegwin School. So that would be looking at major remaining items at the school that would be put on a priority list application. So using notwithstanding language, it would extend out the deadline of June 30th to allow us to submit, because we need to put together some more information and quotes and various things like that. However, we sent at Senator Lesser's encouragement, after having spoken to a number of people at his direction, he was still looking for some more answers. So we submitted a number of questions to DAS last week, towards the beginning of last week. We've had 2 phone calls from them, and they sent a couple of my questions to legal because they weren't sure of the answer. And so we're just waiting for them to get back. They had promised to get back today, but maybe I'll hear from them tomorrow. So pending answers to questions that we continue to ask. And some of those relate to students who are in a school due to the emerging needs of that building to be addressed now rather than at a later period. Is there a way that funding can support that student population at another location as opposed to portable classrooms? So questions are around that subject. How can we support the McDonough School population in their time of transition? And what is the best route to ask for support for this purpose? So, as I said, we're waiting on refinements and answers. I'm hoping to get those very soon so I can report back, which, if we got a positive answer, would result in additional notwithstanding language. We already have the notwithstanding language submitted anyhow to the state for the McDonough project to go on a fast track. But we would be asking, I'm sorry, for an extension of time to put together the remaining large projects for Kegwin School to be put into a package that would be classed as renovation and supported by the state at the reimbursement rate of 66.07%.
Okay, thank you for the update.
Certainly.
The next topic may or may not be anything you have information about, but is there any word about unfunded mandates and any relief that towns can expect based on what you're hearing in Hartford at this point?
Not at this time.
Okay. Then unless either one of you wanted to add anything else for our information, or are there any members of the board that would like to ask any questions or have any concerns, I would suggest that we go to the question of whether there are any additional information topics that people would like to see at next month's meeting. Okay, then I'm open to a motion to adjourn.
Well, before we do a motion, Harold, I'm sorry, it's Callie. Can I just say, I want Natalie to know that I really, really appreciate her hard work, and all of my questions that I have right on the side of me here have been answered very thoroughly. And I just want you to know that I think you're doing a great job, and thank you very much.
Very kind. Thank you.
And I'm sure the board seconds that sentiment, Natalie. And actually what the whole central office has been doing and trying to get this project up and going. I have one other quick question. I noticed in your listing of grants that have been received.
Yes.
That's in the packet. It's been confirmed that there's money in place for the VOAG program, the funding for the project that will expand in Kegwin.
Yes, it's
Did I
very
read that
exciting.
correctly?
Yes, very.
Dr. Mathis, do you not really have a sense of what that is going to look like with the funding that's now come through?
So VOAG has they that's a special grant that they applied for. But there is in the state budget a specific allocation for uh VOAG schools that always gets appropriated. In the report that I received, there is no change to the allocation for those programs. So I don't see any changes for the VOAG. But as it relates to the projects that they were trying to do, the canopy and the chicken tractor and all those other stuff, those are things actually that the department head and the staff actually pursued some additional grants to kind of offset some of those projects. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie, but
So yes, the things that Dr. V is referring to are the pergola, which is going to be sort of like an outdoor education space, and the chicken tractor. Those are part of the general fund ASTI grant that we receive each year for VOAG. But the one I think that you're referring to is the Perkins Supplemental. And that one was just under $50,000, and it will provide 2 run-in sheds. So if you just imagine a shed with one side not covered, so that animals can, just shelter in that space. And then there's fencing that will be around those sheds, which is movable. So for example, when the animals have eaten all the grass, then they can move that fencing around to accommodate the animals. And then there's also like they're metal pieces of fence that you can put together and assemble and disassemble to put larger animals in there. So it will offer an opportunity for our animals, instead of being during vacation time, instead of being boarded out to other locations and farms, the animals will be able to be kept at the Kegwin Field area. And also it will allow for opportunities and encounters with animals for students at Kegwin School and our McDonough students in the time that they are in that building. So everyone is so excited. As Dr. V said, VOAG has been very successful in getting multiple grants this year. The other one that's very exciting is the Community Foundation grant for birds, migratory birds. And to imagine that the students and staff have been in waders in the creek there, assembling homes for migratory waterfowl and such. And they have little cameras in the duck boxes so that the students will be able to see eggs hatching and so forth, the growth of the birds. So the funders are very excited to be visiting in the near future, in the next couple of weeks, to see the work that the students and teachers have done. Very, very exciting.
Natalie, do you know if that is connected to the report in the Middletown Press last week about students that went out with Miss Thompson, I think?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Right, it's connected to that.
Yeah.
So, and this will be all positioned across the street from the entrance, correct? In the field across the street?
It's the field. Yes, it's very close to the building. Yes, but it also is accommodating the fact that that area is used for various sports. So we've
Right.
booked that area with the director of athletics. we spoke to a number of teachers and so forth to preserve the space that is needed for those different sports. So it's sort of around the periphery, and then on one side where we have some garden beds and a shed. So yeah.
The specific areas have already been mapped out and decided.
Yes,
Yes.
it was exciting. We used Google Maps to do that mapping, and everyone agreed. So looking forward to a great mixed use space.
Okay, it does sound exciting for everybody involved, including the students, especially. Callie, are you ready to make a motion to adjourn? I guess I'll
Yes, motion, yes.
motion to adjourn. I'll second.
Yep.
And it's 6:21. Thank you all for participating tonight.